yourself for lies.
It was early evening on a rainy Tuesday when I learned I had been quietly demoted inside my own marriage. Rain rattled against the garage door like a slow, impatient drum. The air smelled of damp concrete, sawdust, and the faint tang of motor oil that never quite left the place. My tools were laid out in neat rows on the workbench. Socket wrenches, drill bits, my grandfather's old carpenter's square. They were more organized than my life. I was kneeling on the cold floor, tightening the mounting bracket on a metal shelving unit Sarah had bought for her craft room, a project that didn't exist yet, a hobby she'd probably abandoned in 3 weeks. Still, she wanted the shelves up now. I'd just come home from a 10-hour day managing a construction project that was running behind schedule and over budget. I still had my boots on. My back was tight, my hands sore, but I was down there anyway, doing what I always did. Fixing, providing, maintaining. The drill whined as I drove the last screw in. I wiped sweat from my brow with the back of my hand. Finally, I muttered. I reached for my heavy-duty screwdriver to adjust one of the brackets and realized I'd left it in the kitchen. I stood, knees popping, and headed toward the door that led into the house. That's when I heard her voice, not raised, not angry, relaxed, amused. I stopped with my hand on the door handle. Inside, Sarah and her mother were sitting at the kitchen table. I could hear the clink of coffee cups and the soft hum of the refrigerator. "I don't know, Mom," Sarah was saying, her voice carrying that sharp, dismissive tone I'd been pretending not to notice for months. "He's not exactly the romantic lead type anymore." Her mother laughed. Sarah continued, warming to the topic. "Honestly, most days he's just there, like a roommate who happens to be really good at fixing things. I mean, he's basically a live-in handyman who pays half the mortgage." There was a pause, then laughter. Not nervous, not uncomfortable, amused. Her mother snorted. "Well, honey, at least he's useful. Think of the money you save on contractors. You've got a human ATM who also does the yard work." The words hit me like a bucket of ice water. My hand stayed frozen on the door handle. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard I could hear it in my ears. They kept talking, but I didn't hear anything else, because that one sentence replayed in my mind. Human ATM. Live-in handyman. Roommate. This wasn't frustration. This wasn't venting. This was how they saw me. I wasn't her husband. I was a convenience. I stepped back from the door as quietly as I could and returned to the garage. I closed the door behind me without a sound and sat down on my workbench. I picked up a beer from the mini fridge I kept there and popped it open. My hands were shaking, not with anger, with clarity. I stared at my tools, the same ones I'd used to remodel her kitchen, build her deck, repair her car, hang her shelves. I'd built a life with these tools for a woman who saw me as dead weight unless I was holding one. I took a slow sip of beer. "I'm done," I whispered into the empty garage. Not with her, with being used. When I went inside later, she acted normal. "How'd the shelves go?" she asked, scrolling through her phone. "Fine," I said. She didn't even look up. That night, I lay in bed beside her, staring at the ceiling, replaying her voice in my head. A roommate who happens to be really good at fixing things. She rolled over, pressed a cold foot against my calf, and sighed. "Can you set my alarm for 7?" she mumbled. I reached for her phone and did it, but something inside me had already broken. The next morning, I woke up at 5:30 a.m. The house was quiet. No traffic yet, no phones buzzing, just the low hum of the fridge and the ticking of the hallway clock. I went into the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror. Dark circles, a permanent crease between my eyebrows, a man who looked tired in a way sleep couldn't fix. I leaned forward, gripping the sink. "You let this happen," I said quietly. The man in the mirror didn't argue. "I don't respect myself," I whispered, "and that's why she doesn't." My jaw tightened. "That stops today." I didn't make coffee. I didn't pack her lunch. I didn't check her tire pressure like I usually did on Wednesdays. I showered, got dressed, and grabbed my briefcase. When she came downstairs, she looked confused. "Did you forget something?" she asked. "No." She glanced at the empty coffee maker. "There's no coffee." "I know." She frowned. "Did you finish the shelves?" "No." She finally looked up from her phone. "Why not? You said you would." "I changed my mind." She stared at me like she'd misheard. "What?" "I changed my mind," I repeated calmly. "Have a good day." I walked out. Behind me, I heard her say, "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" But I was already gone. That afternoon, I found myself sitting in the office of Mr. Princewill, a family law attorney with silver hair and a voice like gravel. "So," he said, tapping his pen on a yellow legal pad, "tell me why you're here." "My wife calls me a roommate," I said. He raised an eyebrow. "That's telling." "She laughs about it, with her mother." He nodded slowly. "Then give her the full roommate experience." I leaned forward. "What does that mean?" "It means you stop performing free labor. You stop subsidizing her lifestyle. You protect your assets. You prepare for separation before she even realizes it's happening." A strange calm settled over me. For the first time in years, I wasn't reacting. I was planning. The first thing I learned about taking your power back is that you don't do it loudly. You don't slam doors. You don't yell. You don't threaten. You simply stop giving. For years, Sarah had lived inside a quiet luxury she never noticed, the luxury of my competence. When something broke, it was fixed. When something needed planning, it was planned. When a problem appeared, it disappeared because I handled it. So when I stopped, it wasn't dramatic. It was unsettling. That evening, I came home before she did. I sat on the couch with a book, one I'd bought years ago and never had time to read. The shelves were still half installed in the craft room, the metal frames leaning against the wall like a question no one had answered. Sarah walked in around 6:30, dropped her purse, and kicked off her shoes. "Did you move the shelves?" she called out. "No." She appeared in the doorway. "What do you mean, no? They're still leaning against the wall." "I know." "So, are you going to finish?" I turned the page. "Probably not." Her eyes narrowed. "What's going on with you?" "Nothing," I said calmly. That was a lie, but a useful one. 2 days later, the kitchen faucet began its familiar drip. Drip, drip, drip. Normally, I would have fixed it in 5 minutes. I didn't. Sarah stood in front of the sink, arms crossed. "It's been dripping all day." I noticed. "Well, I think you should call a plumber." She laughed. "A plumber? Are you serious? That's like $200. I closed my laptop. "Roommates don't do free plumbing." The words landed between us like a dropped plate. She stared at me. "What did you just say?" I said, "Roommates don't do free plumbing." Her mouth opened, then closed. "Why are you acting like this?" I met her gaze. "Because I'm just a roommate who's good at fixing things, right?" Her face went pale. "You heard that?" she whispered. "Yes." Silence stretched between us. Then she scoffed. "Oh my God, you're being dramatic. I was just joking with my mom." Were you? I asked, because it sounded pretty practiced. She crossed her arms. So what, now you're punishing me? No, I said calmly. I'm just living up to your expectations. The plumber came the next day. $240. Sarah complained the entire time. This is ridiculous, she muttered as she signed the invoice. We shouldn't have to pay for this. I didn't say a word. That night, the porch light burned out. She noticed when she came home late. Why is it so dark out here? She asked, fumbling for her keys. Lights out. Well, aren't you going to change it? No. She stared at me. Are you seriously doing this? Yes. That weekend, she went out to brunch with her friends, the same women who had laughed at her roommate joke. I stayed home, not sulking, preparing. I went to Home Depot and bought moving boxes. Not a single tool, just boxes. I packed my personal items first, clothes, books, photos that were actually mine. Then I started moving my tools. My grandfather's table saw, my drill set, my specialized wrenches, everything that made me useful. Each piece went into a storage unit across town. Sarah didn't notice. Not yet. When she finally did, it was about the lawn. The grass is insane, she snapped one morning. Why haven't you mowed it? I'm busy. With what? Living like a roommate. Her eyes flashed. You're being petty. No, I'm being accurate. By the end of the second week, the house felt different. Not broken, unmaintained. The mailbox sagged. The garage door squeaked. The porch light stayed dark. Sarah had no idea how much invisible work had been holding her life together, and for the first time in 10 years, I let her feel it. The third week felt different. Not louder, not angrier, just thinner, like the walls of our marriage were made of paper and someone had started tearing them away layer by layer. Sarah didn't yell anymore. She started hovering, watching, listening. The house was no longer a place of comfort for her. It was a series of small betrayals she couldn't understand. The porch light still didn't work. The lawn was still wild. The craft room shelves still leaned uselessly against the wall. Every one of those things felt like a personal insult. It finally snapped one Tuesday morning. The mailbox, already hanging crooked, tore free from its last screw and clattered onto the driveway as Sarah backed out of it on her way to work. She stormed back inside 10 minutes later. "This is ridiculous," she shouted. "The mailbox just fell off. Our mail is going to get stolen." I looked up from my laptop. "That's unfortunate." "You have to fix it." "I don't." She stared at me. "What do you mean you don't?" "I mean I'm not going to." Her voice cracked. "Why are you doing this to me?" I leaned back in my chair. "Why did you call me a roommate?" "That was a joke." "Jokes are supposed to be funny," I replied. That one was just honest. That night, she cried in the bedroom. Not loudly, just enough for me to hear. "You're destroying our marriage," she said through tears. "No," I replied quietly. "I'm just not carrying it anymore." She rolled over to face me. "I don't know who you are." I almost laughed. "This is who I've always been," I said. "You just didn't need to notice." 2 days later, she tried anger again. "If you don't start acting like a husband," she snapped, "I swear I'll leave." I looked up slowly. "You already did." She froze. "What does that mean?" "It means you left the marriage emotionally a long time ago. You just forgot to pack your bags." That weekend, she left for a spa trip with her mother. She didn't say goodbye. She expected me to use the time to catch up on all the things I'd stopped doing. Instead, I packed. By the time she came back, the garage was empty. The tools were gone. The manila folder on my desk was full. Sarah came home from the spa that Sunday evening glowing. Her hair was freshly styled. Her skin smelled like eucalyptus and money. Designer bags swung from her arms as she pushed the front door open with her hip. She froze. The porch light was still out. The grass was wild. The mailbox hung crooked, barely clinging to the post. "This place looks like a dump," she muttered. She stepped inside and looked around. It felt wrong. Not messy. Empty. "Hello?" she called. I stepped out of the bedroom carrying the last box of my personal belongings. It wasn't heavy, just photos, documents, and a few things I'd kept for myself. She stared at me. "What is that?" "My things. Why are you packing?" "I already finished," I said calmly. Her face drained of color. "You're joking." I walked past her and set the box down by the door. On the kitchen counter sat a single manila envelope. She followed me with slow, frightened steps. "What's in that?" she whispered. "Open it." Her hands shook as she pulled out the papers. Her eyes moved across the page. Her mouth fell open. "Divorce?" she croaked. "You filed for divorce?" "Yes." "You can't do this!" she shouted. "You can't just leave!" "I already did," I replied quietly. "What about the roof, the winterizing, the garage door?" I picked up my jacket. "You said you needed a roommate who fixes things. You can find one on Craigslist." She burst into tears. "You're being cruel!" "No, I'm being honest." I walked out. The silence after I left wasn't peaceful. It was loud. Sarah felt it the moment the door closed behind me, not because she loved me, but because the infrastructure of her life had just collapsed. For years, she had lived inside a system she didn't understand, a system I maintained quietly, efficiently, invisibly. And now the system was gone. She didn't call me the first night. She expected me to come back. The second night, she texted, "We need to talk. This has gone too far." I didn't respond. On the third night, she called. I watched the phone vibrate on the kitchen counter of my new apartment, a clean one-bedroom place across town that smelled like fresh paint and possibility. I let it ring. When she finally left a voicemail, her voice wasn't angry anymore. It was scared. "You can't just abandon me like this. I don't know how to handle all of this alone." That was the point. By the end of the first week, she discovered how expensive independence was. The lawn service charged her more than expected. The electrician quoted her double what she assumed was reasonable. The water heater began making a noise she couldn't identify. Every problem that used to disappear now demanded a checkbook. She complained to her friends. "He's being vindictive," she said. "He's punishing me." One of them asked carefully, "Didn't you say he was basically just a roommate?" Sarah snapped, "That's not what I meant." But it was what she'd said. She showed up at my apartment unannounced. I opened the door and didn't invite her in. She stood there, arms crossed, eyes darting around like she was looking for proof that I was suffering. "You look fine," she said. "I am." "This isn't what I wanted," she said sharply. "I just wanted you to try harder." I smiled faintly. "I tried for 10 years. "That's not fair." "Neither was turning me into a punchline." Her voice dropped. "So that's it? You're just done?" "Yes." She stared at me, searching for leverage. She didn't find any. The paperwork moved faster than she expected. Mr. Princewell had warned me, people who rely on others never plan for exits. I had. Documentation, receipts, timelines. When the divorce was finalized 6 months later, it was clean, efficient, and legally unforgiving. She called it cold. I called it fair. I lost weight, not intentionally, but because stress stopped living in my chest. I slept. I focused. At work, my performance changed so dramatically that my boss pulled me aside. "You're different, clearer, more decisive." 3 months later, I was promoted to senior manager. My apartment filled slowly, with furniture I chose, silence I enjoyed, and peace I protected. I saw her at a hardware store one afternoon. She was struggling to lift a bag of mulch into her trunk. She looked older, tired, smaller. "Hey," she said softly, "can I ask you something? Just a quick question about my water heater." I smiled politely. "I'm off the clock, Sarah. Try the service desk." She nodded, eyes glossy. I walked away without looking back. As I drove home, I understood something fully for the first time. Her calling me a roommate wasn't an insult. It was a gift. It forced me to stop accepting crumbs, to stop confusing usefulness with love, to stop shrinking myself to make someone else comfortable. I wasn't an appliance. I was a man, and I finally remembered my worth. Sarah didn't realize it at first, but the most painful part of losing me wasn't the empty house. It was losing the story she told about herself. For years, she had been the hero of her own little universe, the woman who outgrew her husband, the one who was brave enough to demand more, the one who was finally choosing herself. At first, after I left, that story worked. On social media, she framed the divorce like a glow-up. Sometimes you have to walk away from what's comfortable to find what's meant for you. No more settling. A woman who knows her worth will never stay where she isn't celebrated. The comments were full of validation. "Yes, queen! Know your worth. Men hate to see a woman choose herself." Sarah fed on it. Every like was a hit of dopamine. Every supportive comment reinforced the lie that she had won. But here's the problem with leaving a good man for imaginary upgrades. Reality shows up with receipts. Within weeks, the private messages started drying up. The men who flirted in her DMs wanted something casual, not commitment. The ones she went on dates with were either emotionally unavailable, broke, or still living with their exes. She told people it was fun, but I heard through mutual friends that she was already exhausted. One of them, a coworker of hers named Melissa, told me later. She kept saying, "I thought it would be different. I thought dating would be easier." And that's when the first public shift happened. Her posts changed. From "living my best life" to "healing is messy." From "finally free" to "some days are harder than others." She was losing control of the narrative. Then came the financial reality. When you lose a husband who quietly subsidized your lifestyle, the bills don't care about your empowerment quotes. Sarah went from weekend spa trips, brunches, and new clothes to 2 jobs, canceled subscriptions, and budget groceries. People noticed. The same friends who had cheered her on started whispering, "Didn't her ex make really good money? I heard he used to handle all the house stuff. Why is she working so much now?" She hated those questions because they poked holes in the fantasy. The final blow came when one of her friends, the same one who used to laugh at her jokes about me, got engaged. A simple post, a ring, a smiling couple, a caption about partnership. Sarah spiraled. She made a vague post later that night. "Some people don't appreciate what they have until it's gone." But the comments didn't go the way she expected. Someone replied, "Didn't you leave your husband?" Another added, "Yeah, didn't you say you outgrew him?" No one rushed to defend her. The silence was loud. Because here's what Sarah learned the hard way. You can rewrite the story online, but you can't rewrite how people remember reality. They saw me. They saw the house I maintained. They saw the stability, and now they saw her struggling. The glow-up narrative collapsed under the weight of evidence. And suddenly she wasn't the brave woman who walked away. She was the woman who left a solid marriage and downgraded. When she asked if we could try again, it wasn't love. It was panic. I wasn't just her husband. I was the stability, the safety, the foundation her new life was missing. She didn't miss me. She missed what I provided. And this time, I saw it clearly. Her reputation never recovered, not because I trashed her, but because she built her entire identity on the idea that she could replace me with something better, and life quietly proved her wrong. Meanwhile, I rebuilt myself, stronger, calmer, respected. And the best revenge wasn't winning, it was no longer being part of her story at all. If Sarah's life unraveled loudly, mine rebuilt itself quietly. No announcements, no dramatic posts, no need to prove anything, just progress. The first thing that changed wasn't my bank account or my body. It was the silence. The kind of silence that doesn't feel empty. The kind that finally lets you hear your own thoughts. In my new apartment, nothing was broken. Nothing leaked. Nothing needed to be patched, fixed, or rescued. And for the first time in a decade, neither did I. 3 months after the divorce, I joined a Saturday morning hiking group. Not because I was lonely, but because I wanted to remember what it felt like to move forward. That's where I met Claire. No heavy makeup, no performance, no testing, just a woman tying her boots beside me and saying, "Hey, do you know if this trail is brutal or just dramatic?" I laughed. "That depends on how much you hate hills." She smiled. "Well, then I'll hate them slightly less today." That was it. No games, no measuring, just two people walking. Claire never asked what I did for a living first. She asked what I liked. She didn't test my boundaries. She respected them. When I told her about my past, not in detail, just enough, she didn't say, "Well, women need excitement." She said, "That sounds exhausting. You deserve peace." No one had ever said that to me before. Being with Claire felt like taking off armor I didn't know I was wearing. There was no scorekeeping, no leverage, no emotional hostage-taking. When something broke, we fixed it together. When one of us had a hard day, the other showed up. Not because they were supposed to, because they wanted to. That's what Sarah never understood. Love isn't about being needed, it's about being chosen. Sometimes I still pass the old house. The lights are usually off. The lawn looks a little wild, and I feel nothing. Because I didn't lose a marriage. I escaped a story where I was only valuable for what I could provide. Now, I'm valued for who I am. And that made all the difference. Thanks for listening to our story. It's wonderful to have you here. Please like and subscribe to have more content come your way, and do check out the other stories from our channel.